Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fleet's Random Ramblings 107. Short and sweet. Now, you might say, Fleet, what's this? Well, so we're doing things a little bit differently today. It's not a full replacement Ramblings for Monday, and that's for a few reasons. For one, I'm really not up to a full 3-hour Ramblings today. I'm still recovering. I don't want to completely strain my voice, and mentally, I'm not there. 2, there will be no catch-up questions taken today either. If your question is not answered today, it will not be answered until, well, probably not be answered. So bear that in mind before you ask long questions. 3, there will be a birthday ramblings on Monday. Sorry. Yeah, there'll be a birthday ramblings on Monday the 15th after my birthday. And then after that, I've decided, given the way my headspace currently is, given the way work currently is, etc., and just the desire to kind of enter the new year with a fresh sheet, I've decided that for the rest of December after the 15th, I will be taking a break from streaming and doing ramblings for now, just to give myself a chance to kind of rest, rejig myself, and come back into it with a fresh face. So bear that in mind as we... So your last chance to get questions in and answered is on Monday for this year. There will be no further ramblings or streams for this year after Monday. Basically, as I'm just... work's taking up a lot of my time. I don't really have the mental capacity right now to do ramblings the way I used to like doing it. And I haven't had for a couple of weeks now, and this illness has really taken it out of me as well. Worn down what little reserves I had left. So basically, yeah, I will be after next Monday, which will be the last proper ramblings up to the 15th of December. There will be no ramblings till January the 5th. Sorry, no. Scratch that. It's not the 15th, it's 22nd. But there's a reason for that. We do have a special guest coming on the 22nd to discuss the board game Victory in the Pacific. So, the 22nd, sorry, will be the last ramblings. But there'll be no other streams apart from that. There'll be no catch-up ramblings on the Friday after the 15th. And there'll be no catch-up ramblings after the 22nd either. The 22nd will be run as a special ramblings because I've already arranged it with a special guest. But apart from that, there'll be no other... there'll be no other special events apart from that. So, without further ado, people can now start... Hang on, if I remember to turn the bot on. I may not have. I'm not exactly firing on all cylinders. This is kind of the reason why I want to take a break. Because I haven't been really firing on all cylinders for a while. I'm still really not firing on all cylinders. Yes, night. So no streams and ramblings until January 2026. That's what I said. Excluding next Monday and the 22nd. And this one will only be going until 6:30. So that's another 45 minutes of me answering questions. So ideally, you should be doing quickfire questions, and I'll be saving the Patreon questions until Monday as well, because I think it's better to do it that way. I wanted to at least touch base, get a quick ramblings in, let people know, I'm all right, not dead. Fleet's okay. But yeah, so you see, my brain's really not working today. It's just not. See, this is why I needed to touch base. I needed you to you know, you all needed a chance to touch base with me and me with you, etc. You have a bunch of unanswered questions. You do, Gunnery Officer, but you also do get a lot of your questions answered as well. You, by a considerable metric, get more of your questions answered per capita than a lot of other people do. Out of the unanswered questions that we haven't got to, pick the ones that you find most urgent, / you really want an answer to. And then ask those again. Basically kind of pare them down to the questions that you really, really want answering. Because it does kind of feel sometimes like you do hit us with a shotgun blast of good questions, to be sure, but good lord, there's a lot of them. So does anyone have any questions to get us started? We do have a question from YouTube, so let's get that in there. Dragon and Foxo aren't here yet tonight, I'm afraid. Well, Dragon is, but he's muted, and Foxo I don't think is here. Okay. I
am here, just keeping my mic muted. Because I'm technically doing two different things.
Okay, one of them's a nice simple question, so that really does fit with what I'm kind of trying to go for today. So we'll have that after Knight's question. So Dragon's here, so I suppose technically one of two is good enough. 96831 for Dragon and Foxer. What does the Azure Lane December 2025 UR prelude event title to a brighter world sound like to you?
Fight until the last light fades, but we don't really have any info on it, so no clue.
Typical Gunnery Officer.
Like, honestly, no clue at the moment.
Typical Gunnery Officer asks question 14. Do you think the UK Mark 23 6-inch gun is better than the UK 6-inch gun? 6-inch is the better UK 6-inch gun, like the ones on the Fiji and Crown Colony class cruisers in terms of firepower, rate of fire, range, easy to produce, and reliability. What? Hang on.
Wait, the Mark 23 is the one found on them. That's a check. I might be getting the mark slightly mixed up, but
no, no, you're absolutely right. That is the gun found on the Crown
Colonies. What's it called? It is the. Where is it?
So you're asking, is the Mark 23 better than? You're asking, is the gun that is mounted on the Crown Colonies and the other ships better than the gun that's mounted on the Crown Colonies and the other ships? Okay, that's a little bit of a circular, go round in circles question.
There is the 50 caliber QS Mark N5, which sometimes has a slightly
US
different
6.
one, but...
Sorry, US 6-inch 47. Oh, the UK. Sorry. Do you think the UK Mark 23 6-inch gun is better than the US 6-inch 47mm gun, like the ones found on the Brooklyn and Cleveland class cruisers, in terms of rate of fire, range, ease to produce, reliability? It's a last generation quick firing cruiser mounted 6-inch gun. To be perfectly frank with you, all of those guns are pretty much the same. The Soviet.
What do you mean they're a last generation?
As in, they are the last. They're of this last generation of cruiser, of non-auto loading cruiser 6-inch gun.
The Mark 23 is technically an autoloader, just not in the same way as the other ones were. Right.
You know what I mean? As guns, they're basically the same fucking thing. There's very little real difference.
Technically, the US one, depending on what's being used, has a higher rate of fire. They apparently on exercises average between 8 and 10, whereas the British ones average between 6 and 8.
But that's still Jesus fucking Christ.
On the other hand, though, we actually do have proof of rates of fire for the British ones of 10 rounds per minute. Also,
yeah, it's like, I'm sorry,
so
it doesn't matter whether
when it comes down to realistic. When it comes down to, just to finish this point because I think you'll agree with me. When it comes down to it, they've probably got the same average rate of fire. This is because that's their surge rate of fire, not their right. We've been shooting for 10-20 minutes rate of fire, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's much of a difference in there. Range-wise,
depends on the mount, the ship, and the time. Literally, because it changes.
On average, the British ones have slightly longer range.
It's not enough to really matter.
That's probably due to them being a 50 caliber. We're talking the difference of what, 1,200 meters at max range.
That's not a lot of leg room.
We're talking like the difference between 23,300 meters versus 21,946 meters.
Yeah, it's not that there's very little difference. They're both pretty good, reliable, solid guns. There's a reason why both navies stuck with them. Knight6831, is it accurate that an F-18E Super Hornet couldn't operate off an Audacious Ark Royal? Yes, absolutely. The Hornet is a large, heavy aircraft, larger and heavier than an aircraft an Ark Royal can actually handle. And I don't mean in terms of, and I know everyone's going to come out and shout, but Fleet, she handled Phantoms. I'm like, yes, Hornet is different altogether.
I think with a refit, she probably could easily, but
Hornet couldn't operate off Essexes or Midway.
Yeah, so yeah, right.
And if Midway couldn't handle them, then why the hell should an Audacious class be able to?
So I think it depends on the refits, but because the Audaciouses did get various other different designs in the base, in their base design protocols, which the Midways didn't quite. Because the Audaciouses did get delayed.
But the Midways are.
But yeah.
Yeah. But also, look what Midway fucking turns into by the end. And even then, she still couldn't fucking handle them. Typical gunnery officer asks, what if Admiral Nimitz rejected MacArthur's plan of invading Peleliu and the Palaus, and Nimitz chose to invade Iwo Jima with the 1st Marine Division and other Marine divisions, plus the infantry division slated for the invasion of Palaus in September 44, before the Philippines operation began? Are lives being saved compared to IRL, and do you think it'll secure the Marianas' northern flank from Japanese air raids and secure an emergency field for B-29s earlier than IRL? Going after Iwo Jima before you've secured the Peleus, Palau, before you've secured... well, first of all, you're not flying B-29 raids without the Peleus and Palau. That's where the first raids go from, as far as I'm aware. Secondly, again, that is a target that's out in the open. That's practically, it's in short, it's not advisable. There's a reason why they didn't, and it's because it's basically way too far into Japan's defensive perimeter. Like, you don't hit Iwo Jima until you've at least got the Philippines behind you, and you've definitively smashed Japanese fleet strength. Because if you anchor your fleet off Iwo Jima and the Japanese fleet and you haven't smashed the air fleet at Philippine Sea and the surface fleet at the Battle of Leyte Gulf, or the battles of Leyte Gulf, I should say, you don't have the security to just park a massive US fleet off Iwo Jima stationary, immobile, and fixed, and be confident with that. Because the IJN does have the strength to go, no, actually, thank you for making yourself a tempting target. That's what... Gunnery officer, what sort of... Okay, I'm sorry, I have to just... And Dragon, back me up here. I'm sorry, I have to question that warp logic. Doesn't that mean Super Hornet isn't a good aircraft because it couldn't operate off Ark Royal? What?
Huh?
What sort of metric would an aircraft being able to being able to operate off Ark Royal make it a good or bad aircraft? Like you see what I'm going with there? What? I'm confused.
Don't understand it myself.
But yeah, no, it's basically about securing your rear. I think they're good jumping off points. They're more air bases to launch raids from. I think there's a reason why MacArthur agreed that they had to be taken. Sorry, I think MacArthur had I think MacArthur was right about taking them. I think Nimitz could see why he was right. It does, and it's also more training, it's more experience for the big one, the Philippines. So yeah, no, I think this whole plan is a very bad idea and could result in a lot of US ships and men being killed. Nice 831. In the Endurance Ace Combat 8 trailer, showed an Audacious class Ark Royal as Endurance CV-15, which it didn't. It was an Essex class carrier. Night, it wasn't an Audacious, it was an Essex. They've been... Why would not Royal style? But either way, why wouldn't Essex still be around in 2029 given the number of wars Usia has had? It's Ace Combat. It's Ace Combat. Roll any dice from reactivated museum ship to super weapon MacGuffin testing device to the president likes it. It's Ace Combat. Roll dice for silly MacGuffin reason.
That's not really true. They do try and keep stuff up that's modern.
No, I know, but
like
for this carrier, it's like for the Essex, it's like...
Also, then again, there's already a lot of stuff that people are going, 8's a bit odd.
I mean, it's definitely a choice for a place to operate from. It has to be sure. But as for why, I would have to look into the history of the Usian Navy. I'm not that familiar, unfortunately. Like I say, I'm only going for another half an hour because I'm really not. Brain is not functioning tonight, folks. I'm really not on the fine form. Typical gunnery officer asks, what if in the 1864 US election, Lincoln lost the election and the Democratic candidate won? Would Lincoln's opponent, after assuming office in 1865, immediately sue for peace with the South and letting the South have their own sovereignty and recognized as a country? You mean if McClellan won? Yeah, no, McClellan would not have won. McClellan would not have sued for peace immediately. McClellan was running on a campaign of crushing the South. He's an idiot, though, so would probably be forced into signing some form of peace agreement after he gets humiliated by the South. Again. And fails to win. Okay. Oh, yes, Timu, thank you. Yeah, I'll get to that in a second, Timu, don't worry. No, they wouldn't immediately sue for peace. 1931. What is the difference between an angled flight deck Essex and an audacious class carrier? The Essex has 2 catapults forward, I think. I think in their larger. Well, the thing is, it depends which angled flight deck configuration of the Essex you mean. If it's the biggest Essex, then. Well, first of all, Knight. Apart from the fact that one's an angled Essex and one's an audacious class carrier. Apart from that obvious difference, they're very, very different ships visually. Obviously, one has slightly better elevator arrangements, which is the Essex. One can carry slightly heavier aircraft, which is the Essex. One can the angled flight deck Essexes are in some ways sometimes superior ships to the Audacious, but not in every respect. But basically, the angled flight deck Essexes, when they get their largest style of refit, get a really, really angled flight deck, and they become, yeah. There's an even more angled flight deck one than that. There's one they go even more angly than that at points. The Audacious were more modern ships. That's because they were delayed, though. They had the benefit of lots and lots of time to cook. Timu, Fleet. Thoughts on the livery of Great British Railways? I like it. I'm glad they didn't go looking to the past for livery inspiration. I think that would have been wrong. I think, given that the past was not always great and glorious, especially when it comes to British Railways, and their constant history of chronic failure, with literally only a few bright spots, the HST, Incity 225, etc. The rest just being plodding failure after plodding failure as BR slogged its way through the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. So yeah, I think the new livery is nice. I think it's a very 21st century style livery. I like it. I like the red, white, and blue, and I also like the two-tone blue as well. It's a nice touch. Also, the double arrow logo is the one piece of nostalgia that, well, it's not nostalgia. It's remained in British Railway circles even after the disillusionment of BR, and it's nice to see it retained.
Anyway, hello, Blake.
Hello, you've joined us for the last 25 minutes.
Wait. You are you doing it in an hour?
Yeah, I'm not doing a long ramblings. Then we'll have then we've got a then there's no catch up questions being taken from this one.
So, where's the ramblings?
Well, it started half an hour ago. There's a whole thing at the start that explains what's going on, so you'll have to watch back and listen to that as to why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm taking a break over. So I've got there's going to be ramblings on the 15th, and then there's a special ramblings on the 22nd. We've got a guest coming on to discuss a board game, which is Victory in the Pacific. And then, but there won't be a catch-up ramblings on Friday the 19th, and there won't be a catch-up ramblings on Friday the 26th, and there won't be a ramblings on Monday the 29th of December either, because I'm taking a break. I am exhausted mentally. There's a lot going on right now. I need to just take a break from... I wasn't even sure I was going to do ramblings today, but I felt I had to do something after, you know, being ill. People needed to know that Fleet's not dead.
Indeed, being dead is, in fact, suboptimal.
So, yeah. People Gunner Officer, why did the USN never apply a helicopter deck and or hangar on their destroyer-sized ships in the 1950s until the sprue cans entered service in the mid to late 70s? Why did the USN and large cruiser ships at the times have helicopters on helicopter facilities, not the destroyers? Do you think the USNDDs at that time weren't as multi-purpose as the RNDDs that had helicopter facilities? Okay, all right.
Holy Batman, that's a loaded question.
Okay, first of all, the RN destroyers that come in with helicopters are the counties, and they are ships from the late 50s, early 60s. They are not equivalent with the destroyers the US is building in the 50s. Secondly, the US destroyers did have cruisers and helicopter facilities. Sorry, did have helicopter facilities and helicopters. They were just the destroyer leaders, the ships that then became the cruisers. The US did have helicopters on their destroyers. They were still calling them destroyer leaders at the time. The whole point was that you have destroyers that have I just said gunnery officer. I literally just said 22nd we've got a special guest coming on. So there will be a ramblings on the 22nd. That's what I just said that. But yeah, so as I was saying, prior to the Spruances and the Spokans. Hang on, I'm just gonna check this because I'm sure. Yeah, like I say, like the thing with the Spruances is it's really important to bear in mind they are a massive step change. And they basically come as a result of they're basically a recognition of the change, and also the arrival of the US cruiser force when all of their destroyer leaders have to put on Billy Big Boy shoes and become cruisers. When they were all meant to be, destroyer leaders, etc. They are a step change, and were always meant to be so. They are arguably the first true multi-mission destroyers built anywhere in the world. That's what the Spruances are. They are arguably the first of a new generation. Whereas before, to have that level of capability, you had to be something more than a destroyer. Soviet destroyers didn't carry helicopters in the sense that you're describing until... Yeah, the Leahy and the Belknaps were destroyer leaders, gunnery officer. No, the Sprucans are not replacing the Frams. US frigates of the 60s and 70s replaced the Frams.
These are finally killing off the old converted gun. Right.
Yeah, but they're not replaced. The Spruances are not replacements for the Frams. The roles the Frams were in, they're replacements for the frigates.
Where did you get this idea from?
What do you mean?
Gunnery. Because the subtext here is the Americans didn't know what they were doing, but the British did. It comes to putting helicopter decks and destroyers, and it's like,
The only reason the counties had them is because they were cruisers. They were cruisers masquerading as destroyers. Again, like
Yeah.
the counties were not what the Royal Navy considered to be at the time a destroyer. They called them a destroyer to get them round the treasury.
well, no, Matt. The counties are literally replacing the old 6-inch cruisers. And when the Royal Navy's building the counties, they're also humming and hawing of can they put a helicopter deck on some of the U-Town class that's still around, or maybe Tiger?
We see them
Which
actually.
they've learned with the Tigers they can, as we see with HMS Blake.
Yeah, Tiger.
Yeah.
Like Tiger and Blake do very well as helicopter ships. Very well indeed.
Yeah.
But like everyone forgets that. Like everyone goes, "Oh, they're ugly," and etc. etc. And I go, "Yes, but they're also very useful for the Royal Navy to make the case for large helicopter assets. They're very useful for maintaining a rotary air wing outside of the carriers. They're very useful. They're very useful as task force flagships at the center of ASW formations.
Yes. Because you still have the issue of they're built on town halls that are long in the tooth at that point.
They are.
The whole design.
No, they are. That's true.
I'll admit it, the helicopters. The use of helicopter vessels is where they're good. The counties replace them in the helicopter role. But the Royal Navy with the helicopters on the large destroyers is looking at it from a shrinking a cruiser, not a beginning a destroyer perspective.
Yeah. Don't
Quite
forget
frankly,
for
the
the
US
naval.
didn't need to pull a county.
Naval gunfire is not why they carried those 4.5s. Naval gunfire support. Oh, for God's... Would people stop salivating over naval gunfire support? I'm getting sick of seeing it. That is not why ships carry guns. It is like importance item number 469 on the reason why this ship carries a gun. Sorry, I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to get a little bit...
The role of the guns of the 4.5s is to prosecute targets you don't want to chuck a missile at. Because you've got a very limited missile magazine. And that's still the reason ships have guns today.
Being
Because
inshore
a ship-
is like being inshore in the cold. Being inshore as a warship in the Cold War, as the US found out in Vietnam, against even a minorly, remotely equipped asset or enemy, is a fucking dangerous thing to be.
It's been a... But And the idea of it not being ships don't stick around in close quarters coastal combat since the invention of the fucking torpedo boat.
World War II off the coast of Europe was a fucking anomaly because of the absolute and total air and sea dominance the Allies possessed. And everyone forgets this.
And people also forget that quite a lot of ships were lost to F-boats in the run-up and during D-Day.
You are there, as a naval surefire asset, you are there only as long as it takes for the army to get even like a battalion of heavy mortars ashore. As soon as organic fire assets are ashore, you're fucking gone in the modern era.
It depends on the threat environment you're in. Because a lot of modern surface action, a lot of modern surface ship fire support isn't proactive bombardment; it's counter bombardment and suppression.
Hmm.
And a good portion of how they do that is be a target, get a missile chucked at you, and chuck a missile where the missile was chucked from.
Hmm.
As we saw in Vertical War.
Yeah.
Which is realistically the most modern example of naval combat we've got.
Yeah.
Your gun isn't your wartime asset. And this is aimed at gunnery officer direct. Your guns since the 60s haven't been wartime assets. The guns are peacetime assets. Because in the age of missiles, if you're having to engage with 4.5s, something has gone so monumentally wrong. And that carrier you're protecting is dead. And you're going to be dead. Because a backfire doesn't give a shit. What are you giggling for?
Oh, we'll get to it.
As I've been saying to Foxo lately, breathe.
Knight 6831 asks, if the British took over America in the 1900s, would any naval officer names who fought against them be off the table for future ship names? Probably not, given that we literally are naming ships after all and sundry throughout British history. So, I would probably doubt it, and especially someone who gave a fucking good fight of themselves might get a ship named after them.
We've named ships after parliamentarianism after the restoration of the monarchy.
So yeah, like
we've named ships after Cromwell's admirals.
Yeah.
We've named ships after Cromwell himself.
Yeah.
Well,
you know what she means. No, there'll be nothing that's off limit.
I mean, there might be a soft limit of, okay, if they fail, no one will remember them.
Typical gunnery officer asks, do you think the county class DDGs have a better close-in weapon system with their Seacat in the 60s than the Chuck Adams class, correctly termed the Charles F. Adams, which only have their 5-inch gun battery? The Phalanx system isn't a thing yet. First of all, their two 5-inch 54s are more accurate and faster firing than the 4.5s the county has. Secondly, they have Mark 11 missile launchers that can launch Tartar, which just... a Mark 11 with Tartar is more accurate and rapid firing and more rapidly responding than Seacat is. Seacat is a pathetic weapon system. I would rather have the Bofors guns that it replaced with radar guidance packages fitted than I would have Seacat. That's how bad Seacat is. Seacat was a terrible missile system.
Once again,
Abysmal.
it's a mute question, because if a ship's down to its 5-inch or its 4.5 in this period, it is dead.
Not necessarily, but yeah, it's pretty much dead.
You're
Well,
arguing.
no, it's a tight
Okay,
situation. Pretty bad.
okay. My ribs are 37mm thick. Yours are 39mm thick. I'm sure that difference will matter to the supersonic crossbow bolt that's coming into your chest in a second. It's like, if you're worrying about how, beyond a certain point, how good your inshore defense guns are inboard defense guns are before the era of Aegis and flat phalanx and the close-in weapon system, as a point defense asset, it's a moot point.
Like, make no mistake, ships were expected to use that. Why not a 3-inch? Well, a 3-inch would help, to be fair, but it's basically once you get beyond large subsonic non-sea skimming anti-ship missiles, shooting them down with guns becomes less and less of a winning prospect. Until the concept of shooting them down with guns becomes a winning prospect again, when someone goes, what if we fit the most advanced radar on the most advanced rotational chassis we can think of to the fastest firing fucking thing we can think of?
The defining point, you got to push it back a little bit. What makes the heavy gun attacking the missile physically impossible is the advent of the very early microprocessor in the 60s and the proto-processors. That's when missiles can have their own onboard computer, and the missiles will start to do things like turn and dodge and respond, provided they're still connected to their mother aircraft. Which sort of breaks the ballistics calculations of, if you detect it early enough and you've got a high enough velocity gun, you can intercept it technically. Once the missiles get the ability to,
like, basically, if it's large subsonic and dumb, like flying dumb, you treat it like you would a jet aircraft and engage it with proximity fuse flak.
well, no, if it's supersonic to a point and dumb, you can engage it normally.
Yeah, like, or try to. You may still fail.
Well, yeah, because like I said, the difference is the fly-by-wire control systems, which actually allows the missiles to maneuver.
Yeah.
And turn at supersonic speeds. And at that point, you get stuff like early top attack, sea skimming, ones where they're coming up from below the radar search plane.
Yeah, and at that point, it's even, and at that point, you're really fucked, because trying to engage that with guns, it's like, yes, I'm firing as though I'm shooting at a ship, but I want my rounds to burst where it is, and it's fucking, like having played Sea Power, there's nothing worse than watching your ships elevate their guns as though they're shooting at a target that's way in the sky, and you're like, no, they're engaging a sea skimmer that's 20 miles out, as though they're firing at another ship.
Yeah.
And they aren't hitting shit.
And there's a reason you shoot the bomber, you don't shoot the missile.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you want to, we're aware of torpedo bombs in World War II, right?
Vaguely aware.
And how even in the modern day, it's pretty much impossible to shoot down a torpedo.
Yes. This is why everyone stopped trying.
Yes. By the late 60s, 50s, by the 60s, you're getting to the point where it's the same calculus of, you're not stopping that torpedo. How do you stop the torpedo? You stop the craft that is launching the torpedo. So, in the period of the late 40s, early 50s, the high-velocity, fully electrified mounts, with use of like the incredible auto-loading 6-inch and the 5-inch 54, right?
Mm-hmm.
those against very early missiles are effective. Especially when they're fully fed by autoloaders. Because they can effectively interdict them. By the time you're getting to the counties and the first generation of proper missile destroyers, you're fucked,
Yes.
to put it politely.
Yeah, basically, she's right. So, as I said, this is a very short, sharp question. And then this one from, I'll check if there's been, oh my god, Night! Oh no, he's just speaking as he usually does. Okay, we will actually end on Knight's question. Actually, we'll do, no one ask any more questions, we'll do both Knights and Gunnery Officers, and that'll be where we'll end. 1931. As it was the first Sea Lord who forced the counting class CDGs to have helicopters, if they'd been ignored, what might the space used by the helicopter hangar and helicopter deck be used for? Oh, simple. Probably another Sea Slug launcher and mount and magazine.
Or it would just been cut from the hull.
Yeah, but honestly, given the utility of having a second, given the way Sea Slug worked, the utility of having a second launcher. Second twin launcher, that's not a bad thing at all. That would have given the counties an ability to go. That would have actually given the counties an ability to go. With a pair of us, we can actually just declare an Audacious relatively safe from an air threat. Because yeah, Sea Slug is not exactly what I'd call the fastest missile to reload, but we've got 8 of them in the 60s, and that is enough of a threat to go. Yeah. Yeah.
Because those ships would not be operating alone.
Yeah.
Because the best way you can do it is think about the naval guns as you think about the missiles and just think of actually naval guns. You fire by battery, you don't fire by individual.
Yeah.
And Sea Slug, when you're firing by battery, and you're accepting all the issues of hitting that come from firing in battery, it's not that bad. Don't get me wrong. If you can use anything else, you want to use anything else. But that's just all early surface-to-air missiles.
And once they fixed the problems with Sea Slug is better actually firing individually, but that's only after they've de-teethed a lot of the problems, and that takes half a decade, if not longer.
Yeah, but at that point, it's still a subsonic missile.
Yeah.
And you're looking at it and you're going, you're running into the issues that gun-based missile defense is facing.
Yeah, we really should have done.
You're not going fast enough.
Like, the counties had the space. We really should have done the same deal the Dutch did and gotten Talos for the for them, or at least some of them. Because Talos
would have helped.
Because Talos might be big and old, but it's also a hypersonic fuck you telegraph pole.
Yeah, what they really needed to do was not bitch like BAE's funding and actually have BAE take their prototype to market.
Yeah.
With the Birmingham surface-to-air missiles.
Yeah. Talos isn't as big as you think it is. It is big.
The launch is the chunky part.
Yeah. The counties have the room, especially if they're willing to do just 2 of them. You cut away the helicopter deck and hangar? Yeah. There is plenty of room for a launcher plus magazine on a county.
It's going to sound paradoxical, but the counties ain't small. And one of the good thing about the county design is that it's not very dense. So it's actually got a very large surface area for what it is.
The Gunnery Officer asks, what is the reason the Italians are so obsessed with their Otto 76mm and keep upgrading them with a better feeding system for the gun and newer shells for the rollers, but the main gun and Seawers on their ships? Do you think they don't believe in the Gatling gun system of Seawiz? No, they do. They operate phalanx equivalents as well. The Italian navy had a very different threat environment to the majority of the NATO navies in the Cold War. They had to face the very real possibility of going into the Adriatic, the Black Sea, and most terrifyingly for them, basically the Adriatic. Because if they went into the Adriatic, they were going to be faced with shit tons of dumb ordnance lobbed from Yugoslavia and Albania. Yeah, like we're talking raids by aircraft, we're talking dumb, slow anti-ship missiles, we're talking passive attack craft. Like, there's the reason Italian ships of the Cold War period and even today are still covered in guns like the 76, etc., was that's the environment they were going into. This is the one environment where you do go, yeah, no, actually, cover my ship in fucking 3-inch. Like, for all the reasons we were saying, you don't do that out on the open ocean against smarter missiles. But if your enemy doesn't have the smarter missiles, and they only have lots and lots of the dumb shit, and you only have so many missiles to throw at the dumb missiles, at that point, you kind of go...
Why not?
And the Italians have just got so good at doing it, they just kept doing it. And also the 76...
But it also can't be stated enough that the mission profile for a lot of the ships with all the guns in the modern day, or even in the late Cold War, wasn't really to fight a peer adversary. A lot of the Italian Navy's job is to patrol up the coast of Libya, Tunisia, and then Algeria, when piracy returned in the 1980s and 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Where those guns came in very handy.
Yep. There's also the fact that there's also the fact the Italians are now sitting here with their arms folded with a smug look on their face, going, "Who's already ready for the fucking drone threat?" even though they're saying like they didn't predict jack shit. But also, the Otto Malera 76 is, and likely still will be, the standout light naval gun for a service combatant. If you are a service combatant and you need a gun that is bigger than a 40mm, but not a 5-inch, you don't even ask questions, you don't even think, you don't even do anything else other than ring up Otto Malera and go, give me a 76. It is that ubiquitous in the Western world, because it is that fucking good.
It should also be noted that the Otto Maleras, especially of today, are not, even though they have the same designation, are not the same weapons that they were in the 2000s. That the Otto Malera guns are constantly evolving, keep up with the times. And it shows, look at some of the older guns on the Italian ships.
Yes. Yes, indeed. It is a funny meme, but yes, the Otto Malera non-deck penetrating mount is a funny thing.
It's a funny thing, it's a very useful thing, it's just...
You can slap it anywhere.
Yeah,
I mean, that little tugboat is literally used to move those non-deck penetrating mounts around the port. That's its job.
Yeah. It's also the power of the Automalera, and this is the cool part, is in the fact that you can put it on a Leopard 2 hull and turn it into a land vehicle.
You can try and build an anti-aircraft gun around it, like the Italians
They
did.
did.
Yeah, the
They did.
automatic. The automatic.
That got cut up for bullshit reasons.
And it's probably going to come back for even less bullshit reasons.
Well,
I'm-
no, I don't think it'll come back because that requires money.
The Ukrainians have been trying to fucking buy every example they can lay hands on for love and money.
But did you? Hence why I brought up the Leopard 2 hulled one. And Rheinmetall's being really cagey about selling Leopard 2 hulls. Because the original one was built on the Ariete, and the Ukrainians want nothing to do with the Ariete. We should tell you how bad the Ariete actually is. It's the one Western MBT they haven't looked at.
Yes.
And this is the Ukraine that did try and buy Challenger 1s.
The Ukrainians have been very happy with the Leopard ones, haven't they, as far as support assets? Very happy
Leopard
indeed.
1s, Challenger 1s. There are also stored chieftains. My point more was the fact that Ukrainians don't want the Ariete should tell you enough about the Ariete.
Yeah,
If that
probably.
makes more sense.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we have run a little bit over, but thank you very much for joining me. The reason why I'm cutting it short is, like I say, mentally, it's taken a lot for me to mentally stay with it and be coherent rather than just sitting here dumbfounded while my brain tries to fucking click through the processor movements required to even make myself form a coherent sentence.
Yeah, I think he's
And-
got a habit of mind breaking himself at this point.
Yeah, there is a lot going on in my life right now, and the holiday period as well is not helping. So, yeah, Ramblings has been going downhill a bit, and don't worry, Fleet has also noticed. That's why we're taking the break. So I've got a chance to recharge, and we'll come back fresh in the new year, or of course after the 15th, which is the special birthday Ramblings, and after the 22nd, which is the special guest who we're having on. But, yeah. But after those two, then we'll be back. But yeah, thank you
One
everyone.
more question. No, then we have one more question from Knight.
We did, but it's more a case of that fleet wanted to end it here. So
No,
there's a lot more. There's a bunch of
questions.
questions.
No, we did that. We did that question. That was the one about the DDGs with the helicopters. With the First Sea Lord and the counties.
Okay.
Right.
I was thinking that was a different one.
No. That was the one. Good night, everybody.
Okay.
Fleet needs to chill.